Diddy's lawyer, Mark Geragos, told everyone the truth straight up. He said Diddy is in real danger in jail. Someone already tried to hurt him with a weapon. The attack didn't work, but everyone got the message. Someone tried, and that changes everything. That's why his lawyer said the worry is very real. Famous people in jail don't get hurt by accident. When you're rich and well-known, the danger gets way bigger. His lawyer said violence happens in prison all the time. Now guards have to watch Diddy super carefully. It's not because he's special. It's to keep him alive. Jaguar Wright also talked about this. She asked how someone who used to be so powerful would handle having zero control now. No cameras, no fans, no power moves. When those jail doors close, everything hits different. She also made fun of how Diddy acted in public before. He used to say God guided him. Jaguar said just because someone says God doesn't mean everyone is talking about the same thing. She questioned his symbols and motives. She said his public image never matched who he really was in private. Jaguar also didn't like documentaries that only focus on Diddy and quietly leave other people out of the story. She said pointing at just one person doesn't protect him. It leaves him alone and exposed. In places like prison, being alone is dangerous. She pointed out that some media people used to praise Diddy in public. But later, they dismissed criticism using fancy tricks to confuse people. Diddy once said in a documentary, "I'm doing what God told me to do." He basically said his actions were approved by God. He thought that put him above human law. He felt what he did was right. But God said no. With the shirt itself, it said, "God said no." Do you think after everything that happened, after the verdict, Diddy would still think the same way? Would he still believe God is telling him to keep doing what he's doing? Well, see, that's the thing. It all depends on who you call God. Some people say the word God, but that doesn't mean we're all talking about the same being. The real question is, who's serving the right one? Jaguar talked about Diddy's back tattoo. She said it's an insult in itself. The symbol is supposed to protect women and children. Why would someone like him have that tattooed on his back? She said it's not always lies people tell. It's selective truth. They leave out important parts to change how people remember what happened. When someone brought up Jimmy Henchman, Jaguar said some facts were correct, but she claimed important connections were missing. In her words, business relationships and who did what for who matters when telling the full story. She stressed these are just accusations, not proven facts, but what keeps people talking is what's left out, not just what's said. In stories like this, missing parts can be just as loud as accusations. She said everything about Jimmy Henchman that people mentioned was true, except they left out one key part. Jimmy Henchman did lots of business with Diddy, not just Diddy either. She can think of other famous people he did dirty work for too. It's funny that people tried to make you believe this and that, except they left out the connecting part. And then there's Keith D saying someone hired him to handle business. Clearly, we're talking about situations where someone uses another person to do their dirty work. Of course, this is all claimed, not proven. Keith D's situation is really strange. Jaguar went to Vegas to cover his trial. She had a press pass and everything. But they kept pushing the trial date back again and again. Then he got attacked, just like Tory Lanez did. After that, everything went crazy. Isn't it weird that he's been in jail since 2023 and we're still waiting for his trial in 2026? Diddy didn't get arrested until a year after him. But Diddy already went to trial, got sentenced, and started serving his time before Keith D even got his trial. Keith D has been locked up since 2023. He must not have the right to a speedy trial. They must have skipped that part. Jaguar remembers when she first got to Vegas. If Keith couldn't get a paid lawyer, he had to use a public defender. She rode in the elevator with his public defender twice. He had money, but nobody would take his case. The word went out on the street to not take his case and leave him with the system. This raised big questions about fairness and the right to a quick trial. She also remembered how early on he couldn't even get a private lawyer and had to stick with a public defender. She said he had money, but no one would touch his case. She claimed word spread quietly for lawyers to stay away. That left him stuck with the system. To her, that wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. When they talked about the documentary again, Jaguar said her biggest problem wasn't what was shown. It was what was missing. She felt the project carefully made one person look like the villain while removing others who were involved. This created a clean but misleading story. She called the documentary clever, sanitized, and strategic. If you didn't hate Diddy before, this documentary will make sure you do. What she hates about it is how cleaned up it is. It's set up to make it seem like Diddy is the only bad guy, but it leaves out lots of other people who were involved and did bad things too. That also makes it easy for people to attack it. Like she said, it's very clever. It's just enough to make you hate the whole situation. But there's just enough moved around and added here and there to make you still have doubt about whether any of this stuff is real. So would you call the documentary educational, informational, or entertaining? Gaslighting. It's sad because there's lots of stuff in there that's true, but enough is left out to create doubt. The same thing happened with the trial. Actually, the trial was worse because even more stuff was left out. There was more real information in this documentary than in the trial. Half of the stuff in this documentary should have been shown at the trial. Can you imagine if they had shown any testimony from Little Rod, or the footage he had from that gun incident where the guy was almost killed? Imagine if the jury had seen that footage. She also had questions about the timing. She wondered why so much information came out after sentencing, and why was a documentary announced before arrests or raids? Somehow footage that didn't even exist at the time later became the main part of the project. To her, that didn't feel lucky. It felt planned. He announced he was doing this documentary before the arrest, which is kind of interesting. The footage he used in this documentary happened after he said he was making it. How lucky was that? What a find. Think about that. He announced he was doing a documentary in December 2023 with Netflix, and the star footage he used to get people to resubscribe to Netflix made this the #1 show for almost 2 weeks straight, beating Stranger Things. How much stranger is that? This footage didn't even exist when he said he was making this documentary. So we've got a videographer with very, very explosive footage of Diddy literally sitting on camera, planning how to go after survivors, planning how to poison the jury pool, planning how to fix his trial in advance before he's even arrested. Does anybody remember when Mark Agnifilo was talking to someone in the hallway, and they're filming and he's saying, "Yeah, what we need to do is create counter lawsuits against all these people. We have to create lawsuits ourselves." Enough information to spark outrage, but enough missing stuff to keep doubt alive. In her view, that doesn't show the truth. It controls it. She even called it gaslighting. She said much of it may be true, but key details were left out, just like during the trial itself. According to her, some evidence shown in the documentary never even made it into court, and that could have changed everything. She also pointed to clips showing legal strategy being discussed on camera before charges were filed. Footage that briefly appeared then disappeared. That led to one big question: who had it and who decided to release it? All of this led to the bigger mystery. What would make 50 Cent want to do this? He got everybody talking. He's getting lots of backlash. People are mad at 50 for getting behind this thing. Here's the thing. People are saying some stuff like, oh, they're trying to make it look like it's because of a woman. A man who can have any woman in the world, you understand. He can go anywhere in the world and find beautiful women willing to do whatever he wants. Am I going to be mad because this dude got this one woman? No, it's bigger than that. It's more than that. Lots of these guys out here don't want to tell the truth behind what really happened. Diddy was part of trying to take 50 out, trying to stop him from making money and everything like that. He was part of that because he was telling executives and people not to mess with 50. Just picture this. Diddy knew 50 could write. He knew 50 had talent. You understand. Why couldn't 50 get a deal in New York City? They had him blackballed. 50 even talked about it in an interview. But hold up. It wasn't only one person. Diddy had a voice just as much or probably more. If Diddy would have said, I'm going to sign this kid, who's going to stop him? So why didn't he sign him? 50 wrote some of his best lyrics. The whole thing is, people want me to love my enemy. They want me to turn the other cheek and all that. No, I don't turn the cheek. I don't play around like that. But the whole thing is, if somebody's going to pay me to get at my enemy and I'm going to get a piece of that, why not? According to Gene Deal, it all goes back to the early days when 50 was still writing and building his name behind the scenes. He was supposed to be the next big thing out of New York. Then suddenly everything changed. Gene says people still don't understand why 50 gets so much hate for pushing this situation. But to him, the answer is simple. Some people try to say it's about jealousy or a woman, but Gene shuts that down fast. He says this was never about personal drama. A man with money and global reach isn't crashing out over that. This was always bigger. According to Gene, the real issue is power and control. He says lots of people in the industry don't want to admit what really happened behind the scenes. When someone blocks your path, keeps you isolated, and quietly tells others not to work with you, that sticks. Gene believes Diddy played a role in slowing 50's progress early on, not alone but as part of a bigger machine. He points out that everyone knew 50 could write. Everyone knew he had talent, yet he couldn't get a deal in New York. He says if Diddy truly wanted to sign him, nobody could have stopped it. That silence said a lot. And that's why Gene says you don't just forgive and forget something like that. He added that some people expect 50 to suddenly make peace. But that's not how real life works. When someone tries to block your growth, you don't owe them loyalty. Sly Diggler also spoke up. He described Diddy as someone who always needed control. In his view, nothing was random. Every move felt planned and designed to send messages. One situation stood out the most to him. He claimed Diddy getting involved with someone close to 50 wasn't an accident. It was symbolic, a way to show dominance and keep leverage. According to Sly, that pattern of control is what people miss when they only focus on headlines. And that's why this story keeps coming back. Because for some, it was never just business. It was personal. Sly questioned whether some of Diddy's moves were intentional power plays. He suggested certain relationships weren't about attraction. They were about sending a message. In his view, if someone really wanted to get under your skin, they'd go straight for people closest to you. He pointed out that Diddy never lacked attention. Having been around him at parties, Sly said there was never a shortage of women approaching him. So when a relationship formed with someone closely tied to 50, it raised eyebrows. To Sly, that choice didn't feel random at all. He believed it was on purpose, a form of revenge rooted in long-standing tension. Picking someone connected to an ongoing fight felt like a calculated move, not a coincidence. He also said the way they claimed to meet sounded casual, like it just happened through friends at a party. And while Hollywood circles are small, Sly felt everyone involved knew exactly who they were dealing with. According to him, both sides were fully aware of the history and the tension. That made the situation feel mutual, not accidental. He even said it wasn't exclusive. He pointed out that Diddy had multiple relationships at the same time. Sly claimed the meetings were spaced out, happening every few months but continuing over time. He said they crossed paths in different cities, usually at hotels, not private homes. He also mentioned that even after major headlines and investigations, contact allegedly continued. To him, that proved none of this was random. When asked whether there was ever talk about money, he said not at first, but he confirmed that payment eventually happened, at least early on. For Sly, the bigger picture wasn't about romance or jealousy. It was about leverage, control, and how certain people move when they want to show dominance without saying a word. Sly explained that he never went to any of the big mansions. Most of the meetups happened at hotels instead. He said he was paid the first time. After that, the amount would change depending on how long the meetups lasted. Some of those nights went way longer than most people would expect. According to him, what started late at night often went straight into the next day, sometimes lasting most of the day. He described the focus as being on repetition and endurance rather than anything casual. He remembered being offered more money if things continued longer than expected. These sessions, he said, regularly went way beyond 10 hours, sometimes stretching into the afternoon. When asked about the longest one, he guessed around 16 hours total, basically from night into the next day without much pause. He pointed out that most people couldn't keep that kind of pace without help. When asked if drugs were involved, he said sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depended on the night. He claimed he could tell when things were more intense than usual. There was always something present. According to him, substances were often laid out openly in the room. The atmosphere leaned heavily into partying through the night. Despite all of that, he said communication stayed surprisingly casual. They texted like regular people. Once, when he needed help covering a hotel bill, money was sent without much discussion. If he was in the same city, they would sometimes meet up briefly. One of the shortest meetups happened in Los Angeles, where everything was arranged quickly and ended just as fast. He also mentioned noticing small details that felt off to him. Even things like the smell and taste of what was being offered didn't feel normal. Being familiar with Los Angeles, he said he knew what was typical and what wasn't. He remembered being offered supplements or energy boosters, but he said the woman involved often told him not to take anything. He interpreted that as her trying to protect him. He said he saw different pills and drinks but never knew exactly what they were. Some liquids were mixed into drinks and he couldn't identify them. He added that whenever he smoked, it never tasted right to him. He described it as unnatural. According to Sly, those details stuck with him long after everything else faded. Sly made it clear he knew his way around LA and knew what was normal and what wasn't. He said some things just felt off, but at the time he didn't question it too deeply. He described everything as social situations, parties, and money exchanged afterward. Nothing that felt like a crime to him in the moment. When asked directly if he felt used, he didn't dodge it. He admitted that over time, yes, it started to feel that way. Not because he was forced, but because the emotional side didn't match reality. He described moments where conversations felt deep, personal, and supportive, only for that connection to slowly feel hollow. He admitted he wasn't in the best place mentally back then. He was embarrassed to say it, but he owned it. Looking back, he said the care felt temporary, like it only existed while he was useful. He said he did what he agreed to and got paid, but he still felt like things could have been handled better, more respectfully, more honestly. What really sealed that feeling was how fast communication stopped once everything went public. No check-ins, no concern, no friendship. The connection disappeared the moment it wasn't convenient anymore. When asked if he'd ever go back, even for more money years down the line, Sly hesitated. He admitted the aftermath wasn't worth it. The attention, the rumors, the fallout. It changed everything. His answer wasn't a hard yes or no, but it leaned toward walking away. Gene Deal also addressed the hate aimed at 50 Cent. Some people accused 50 of snitching because of what was included in the documentary, especially references tied to old cases. But Gene disagreed. He said 50 didn't control every detail. He was simply speaking on what he saw and experienced. To Gene, telling your truth isn't snitching. It's accountability. He said if something was wrong, calling it out shouldn't be controversial. And he believes more people would speak up if they weren't protecting their own behavior. In the end, Gene said the biggest reason people defend Diddy isn't loyalty. It's reflection. They see parts of themselves in him, and defending him feels like defending their own past choices. But now, as more stories come out, that protection is cracking. And that's where this story stands. Allegations, perspectives, denials, and lots of unanswered questions. The truth doesn't always come out clean, and it doesn't come out all at once. So now it's on you. What do you think about everything that's come out? Are people defending a man or a pattern of behavior? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is Reprex. Make sure you like, subscribe, and stay locked in. Because if you think this chapter was wild, trust me, the next one goes even deeper.